Hey neighbors, Kevin here with etrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster towed vehicle charge line kit here on our 2022 GMC Sierra 1500. If you've ever flat towed to a faraway destination, maybe it's only a couple of hours away, but you get to that destination and you unhook everything, you go through the whole process of storing everything up, getting your towed vehicle, and then you try to turn it on only to find you have a dead battery, then you'll know exactly what I mean when I say a charge line kit is going to be an essential component. Now, as we flat tow our vehicle, maybe the battery isn't on, we don't have anything inside the vehicle running, but there's some other components like our braking system that can draw from it. So there is a draw on the battery even if you don't think there is. So not allowing that to charge as you go through is just kind of putting yourself in danger. Typically what we used to do is you're supposed to stop every few hours, get out, run your car for a little bit at the gas station maybe, and then go back up to your motorhome, and then you can take back off. That's a huge waste of your time, and no one wants to stop to do that just to keep the battery charged up. So for just 20 minutes of an install pretty much, just run this wire from your 6-pole socket up to your battery area. You'll have just a circuit breaker to pop in there, and just like that, you'll never have to worry about having a dead battery again. Now, just because you have a charge line on your vehicle doesn't mean that the manufacturer of your motorhome actually installed one. So before we do anything, I highly recommend you go and look at your 7-way and test that with either a multimeter or a probe tester to find if you do have 12-volt power coming through to transfer over to the towed vehicle. Now, it's pretty simple. There are a couple of kits. It's essentially going to be the same thing. The only difference is going to be the length of the wire that's included with it. When it comes to the Sierra, I did have to pick up a little bit of extra wire just because there wasn't enough in the smaller length kit that we installed, because we came in over on the other side of the engine compartment and then had to snake through a few things before we could actually come up and then get over to a spot where we could mount our circuit breaker and then another length of wire to run over to the battery. Now, if this is a smaller car, you could probably get away with the smaller kit. With a truck, I'd probably recommend from now on going either with a larger one, or if you're someone that has some spare wire laying around, that'd be a good option for you. But with all that said, if this isn't something you want to install yourself, please feel free to use our dealer locator. You can enter in your zip code and just find a shop to get it installed professionally. And if this is something you feel you could do yourself, which I think you can, in my opinion, then stick around and I'll show you how I did it. Now, to figure out where we can mount our breakaway switch and also our 6-pole socket, in the kit you got this for the 6-pole socket. We're not going to be using that one just because I needed something a little bit bigger because there's not really much to grab onto here. So we have another similar option that's a little bit bigger, has a larger tab on it, but I did end up cutting one off. That way I can get it in place over here. So the idea is going to be that once I drill out some holes for us to slide this through, it's going to mount to this harder support plastic right here. This will be on the outside of the vehicle, so on the outside of that fascia, and then we'll have our 6-pole socket come through that, and then our breakaway is going to mount right up to this bracket here too, because there's 2 different holes in it. So I'm going to probably go with that first one, and if not, I can just drill a second one a little bit further back if that's sticking out too much. But for the 6-pole, all we need to do is just drill out a hole for that wiring to pass through, because I'll have this side of the bracket out on the front of the vehicle. So now we have our bracket mounted in place. On the back side, we had that one tab, which I cut off from this side. It's sitting back, and there's a harder plastic that's for the structure right behind this, and that's what I have bolted through. And then also through that hole, I have our breakaway switch running through that, so that way it's connected to metal, so that way if we ever did have a breakaway situation and it has to yank on this, we're not going to rip it right out of the plastic. But that's all bolted down, and we'll have 2 more bolts that are going to run through here. But before we do that, we need to wire up our 6-pole socket. So that'll go on, and then I have my hardware already ready, and I also painted it too, so that way it'll match. Once it's on there, we'll have an all nice black look. So that'll go on, and then I have some washers and nuts that are going to go on the back side of that and help clamp it down, so that way we get a little bit more of a spread out, because this is all plastic. It's easy for plastic to break instead of just connecting to metal. So the more I can do to distribute that pressure, it's going to help not break anything down if we do have an accident later on. But we can roll down on the back side here and give you a better look of what it looks like inside as well. All right, so on the back here, I've got our bolt coming through, and I have a nice big washer I'm going to stick on the back of that too, just because we're going between two ridges. So I'm really only going to get about half of the washer actually compressing down on the plastic, but it's going to be a whole lot better than just a small nut on the end of that. So with all that mounted up, we can now switch over to the other wiring we have in place over here. So on our breakaway switch, we're going to have our black wire running to the blue wire that we've ran from our operating unit, and then the orange wire is going to run up to the brown wire that's from our operating unit, and then that's going to run over to our power source, which is going to be our battery. And we also have a little red wire here, and that is going to connect to the center post on our 6-pole socket, and that is for our charge line. So that way when the battery, or when we're hooked up to our coach, the coach's battery can help recharge the battery in our towed vehicle as well. All right, now before we wire this up, make sure that you have your boot on the back side there, and with the larger portion facing out, because this is what's going to seal up the back side of our 6-pole socket. Push that back out. All right, now that I've separated each of my wires, we'll strip back just a bit of casing on each one. So if we look at the back here, these are all labeled, so it makes your job a whole lot easier. The top is going to be your trailer running lights. It says TM. Next to that is GD, and that's going to be our ground. Down here at the bottom is our left turn. We have our right turn, and then this spot right here is essentially just a spare spot. This would be for like a brake signal, but since we're not running anything through, this one we're just going to leave closed. And then in the center is going to be our charge line spot. So what you'll do is slide in your wire. Make sure you have it firmly in there, and then start tightening up that set screw. Give it a nice tug, make sure it's not going anywhere, and then we can move on to our next wire. So for this, our yellow is going to be our left turn, green's our right turn, brown is our running lights, and white is our ground. Okay. It's a little tight. So turning our attention to the charge line, I already have the wire in our 6-pole. We've put that into that center post, and I've traced it up to here. So I've just gone through the framing, staying away from anything moving or going to generate heat, and I just came straight up. This is going to be a perfect spot to mount our circuit breaker. Now, there is a specific way you need to wire this. So with the copper post, we want that to be going towards our motorhome. So that's going to go for that 6-pole socket. We'll connect right there with a ring terminal. And then for this silver post, we're going to run another length of wire, which I've already set over here. And I've crimped on one of the ring terminals already. So I'm going to snake this through once we get this kind of set up and in place. And then we can cut off whatever excess we don't need and get it mounted to our battery. But for right now, we will mount up, and this is a perfect spot with this being just a pinch weld right here. We can drill right through it with a self-tapper. All right, I'm crimping on my ring terminal coming from our 6-pole. Put that to the copper post, and we'll thread on one of our nuts. And then I've got this yellow wire that I was going to trace over to pass that as well. Okay, so now we have it all wired up. I'll explain a little bit more. We have our battery post coming to the terminal, coming right off of our battery. And once again, we've got the battery cable, labeled cable, running to the plate that runs out to the rest of the vehicle. On this side, I've also put our charge line because we don't want that to be disconnected when the vehicle battery is disconnected. We want to make sure that we're sending that charge to our battery. So that went on first. Then I stuck my Like I said, battery post cable on, and now that's going to be completing the loop here. So I did have to trim out a bit. So what I did was I bent this up to flip that around, and we trimmed out a section here. So that way when it comes down, now it has room for this nut right here for the terminal. And then we're also clearing this guy right here. So that way, once we have it pushed down, because there is 2 nice little slots here. I did break out one of these little pins right here. It's just plastic, so good to do so. And then we can drop our lid back on. It is a little bit tighter of a fit, but we can get it to click it into place still. And the last thing is just going to be tidying up all of your wiring with some zip ties. Help secure it away so nothing can accidentally grab it. Well, that'll do it for our look at and installation of the Roadmaster charge line kit for towed vehicles here on our 2022 GMC Sierra 1500. My name's Kevin, and if you're still looking for the right charge line kit and help with the installation, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.